Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are so delighted that you could join us.
It's
I'm
so
Andrea
great to,
Miller.
hey, Andrea, I'm Noelle D'Amico.
Hey, Noelle.
It's so great to see so many of you here. We're delighted that you're here at the top of the year. There's so much good stuff that we're going to be covering tonight. We're delighted you're here with us.
Yes, yes, yes. And this is a very, very important topic. And these are very, very, very important activities. Now that, at least in Virginia, we've had an election. When people get elected to office, it is our job to go and visit them and make sure they understand what is important to we the people, because after all, we are the people.
Absolutely. So often we think about democracy and we talk about voting, but that's only one small part of the entire process. When they're there, then we have to hold them accountable. We have to let them know what's important to us, what our priorities are. And we hope that you'll leave this evening's gathering equipped to do just that and put your own special spin on it.
Oh, we certainly love that. My mother used to have a saying. All right, my mother had a saying for everything, but one of her sayings was, if you ask for something righteous and you don't get it, shame on them. If you need something righteous and you don't ask, shame on you.
Well, my son just said to me the other day something, there's some famous hockey player, maybe somebody who's gathered here tonight knows who said this, but um, you don't make the 100% of the shots that you don't take. So if
Yes,
you don't try, if you
yes.
don't get out there and act on what you think is important, 100%, you're not going to see that happen. And so for me, it's sort of a negative way to put it, but it was quite a motivational thought when I thought about it. I thought, yeah, I got to get out there and make sure I'm continuing to take those shots for things that I really want to see happen.
And I am seeing some folks that I haven't seen in years. Hello, Monica Wiley. Wow. And our Justin is here.
I'm
All right,
seeing,
we're going,
oh, look at this. I'm
Justin,
seeing some
Justin.
Democracy Circle leaders too out
Yes,
there.
yes. We've
Hey,
got
hello
a
out there,
lot of
Art.
friends.
This is great.
All right. Yeah, yep, yep, yep. We love it. We love it. We love it. Yeah. Hey, Justin. All right. Well, Justin, you're not going to be here and not work. I'm making you a co-host. I know you thought you were going to just show up tonight and hang out. All right. Welcome, everybody. So delighted that you decided to join us. We have over 300 people signed up for this call. We will be recording it, and everyone who registered will be receiving a copy of our Canva presentation. So, since we've got a lot of information to cover, we will officially get started. So again, a very warm welcome from me, Andrea Miller at Center for Common Ground, and Noelle, and our partners at the Workers Circle.
We're so glad you're here with us. The Workers Circle is a Jewish social justice organization that was founded about 123 years ago by Eastern European Jewish people who came here fleeing autocracy and looking to help build a better and more beautiful world for all. It's their drive for equality and for democracy that inspires our work today. And our key partner at the Center for Common ground has helped us take action in a myriad of ways. So we are delighted to kick off this monthly program that our organizations will be doing together. I want you to mark your calendars because we're going to have this each month, and each month you'll have the opportunity to hear from us on a piece of legislation that is important for voting rights and democracy. And each month, in the second 30 minutes of the program, you'll have the opportunity to get trained on best practices for engaging your member of Congress in your hometown, because you don't have to go to DC to be effective.
As a matter of fact, there is such an opportunity to build a relationship with people in the office in your own hometown that is very, very unique. So with that in mind, let's get started on advocating for voting rights in your hometown. So as I said, good evening, everybody. I am Andrea Miller, and I am so delighted to have you join us. Tonight will be a joint presentation from Center for Common Ground and our partners at the Workers' Circle. It goes this way. Now, what we will be covering tonight, we'll be looking at our legislation for January, which is the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, which will be introduced in the Senate, some messaging on voting, how to meet with your representative, what happens after the meeting, and wonderful organizing concepts of the Democracy Circle. So let's begin with our legislation for January. Now, the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act has not been introduced in the Senate in the 118th Congress yet. The whole idea behind this bill was very, very simple. We need to establish what is the criteria for determining which states and or which counties must obtain pre-clearance before they are allowed to change voting practices. So for the states, it is the Department of Justice. Remember, our dear friends living in the city of Washington, D.C., they are not a state, so they have to go to the district court or the District of Columbia. So, and you will see this all again in the letter. A state and its subdivisions shall be subject to pre-clearance if they have changes for a 10-year period, if during the previous 25 years, 15 or more voting rights violations occurred in the state, 10 or more violations occurred in which one of them was committed by the state itself, 3 or more violations occurred, and the state administers the elections. Now, a subdivision county, think county or city, shall be subject to pre-clearance if within a 10-year period, 3 or more voting rights violations occurred during the previous 25 years. And if they meet certain thresholds regarding minority groups, then they must pre-clear covered practices before they redistrict. And states, counties, cities must notify the public of these changes to voting practices. And it also outlines what the court must consider when they're hearing challenges to the voting practice, such as the extent of any history of official voting discrimination. When the voting rights basically began to be changed. Those of us who work in this were very concerned that we were going to lose the notion of pre-clearance. That was Section 5. Instead, what the courts did was they said the method of determining who must have pre-clearance before they change their voting laws is 40 years old. It's no longer valid, so we're going to throw out Section 4, and you're going to have to come up with a new plan. And that is what the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act does. Now, each month, we will draft a letter, and in that letter, this will be what you will deliver to your member of Congress. Now, when you receive the letter, and we will give you instructions on how to get the letter shortly, you will be able to change the date. What date are you going to deliver the letter? You will fill in the name of the congressional member that you are delivering the letter to. Some of you may say, well, in my town, both of my senators have an office, so I think I'm going to do Senator A, and I'm also going to do Senator B. That's fine. You can deliver 2 letters. So the senator's name, their address, and then dear Senator, their last name. And I always like to remind elected officials that they were elected by we the people. As voters in, since these are US senators and they represent an entire state, then we fill in the state. And basically what you saw on the bullet points, that is exactly what we have in the letter. On the close of the letter, it says, and we didn't write this, but we do certainly enjoy this. We love this phrase. For democracy to work for all of us, it must include us all, no matter our color, party, or zip code. And then at the end, we are asking our senators to give us a written reply. So you will have your name, normally your full address or your email, so that they can write you back. People who have questions, put your questions in the chat. Now, to sign up to deliver a letter, we have created this, I think it's kind of neat event campaign, where right at the top of the event campaign, you can click here and then you can download the letter. If you don't have Microsoft Word and you need it in some other format, we're going to have an email address here, and you can just email us and we will send it over in something that doesn't require you to have Microsoft Word. Remember, you're going to make additions to the letter. You're going to sign it. You're going to address it to your senators. Now, on our form, we are also going to have a link where when you have the date, time, and the address where you're going to deliver your letter, if you want other people to see your event and join us, then you can click a button on the screen and put your event in. If you have questions, if you need help, you can contact Josie at Center for Common Ground. And after you deliver your letter, then there's going to be a form where you can report what happened. And I'm going to go through this fairly quickly. The John Lewis Voting Rights Act is really simply the reauthorization of the 1965 Voting Rights Act. This Voting Rights Act has been reauthorized constantly since 1965 under both Democratic and Republican presidents. And the first time it was not reauthorized was in June of 2013 in Shelby v. Holder. And you may recognize the names of some of the Supreme Court justices. It was a 5-4 decision that they were not going to reauthorize. And we have been attempting to reestablish the formula for pre-clearance since 2013. Now, the message on voting is, again, doesn't matter our race, our background, our zip code. Democracy has to include all of us. There is another bill, Freedom to Vote Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. Together, these two pieces of federal legislation give us a bedrock foundation on voting freedom and also on voting parity. So we are working on the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act this month. Now, in the 118th Congress, since we need a bill to pass the Senate with 60 votes, and we need a bill to pass the House with 218 votes, this may end up being something very important that we do, getting our ducks in a row for possibly the next Congress. Working to pass legislation takes a lot of effort. Now, the bill in the House was introduced in January of last year, and it has 250 House co-sponsors. When they introduced the bill, there were 214 original co-sponsors. They've added one. 218 is normally the number of people on legislation we need to pass a bill in the House. We are still waiting for the bill to be introduced in the Senate, and we expect that bill to be introduced in March. All right, now, this is very, very simple because everybody on this Zoom, you have the ability to talk and engage with people. This is going to be all about engaging with your members of Congress, where, contrary to popular opinion, they are all still people. So when we engage with members of Congress, we are seeking to influence, we want to persuade them, we may bring pressure to bear, and the most important thing for us to do is be consistent and persistent. And we want to build a relationship, which is why we will be back every month, not on the same piece of legislation, in some instances on similar legislation, but always on bills that make it more fair to vote and easier in the United States. Now, why do we even bother to engage? Well, number one, we are responsible citizens. When we think of a lot of the bad things that have happened legislatively, in most instances, this has been corporations and their money behind a lot of the bad things that have happened. They have paid lobbyists. Well, we're not being paid. We are citizens, and we are going to engage our elected officials. Now, there are over 30,000 paid lobbyists. As I said, we're not being paid. So we now are looking at paid lobbying versus citizen advocacy. There are a lot of citizens, and so we are going to visit our members of Congress. Back in the day, I used to work on something that was called Educate Congress, because legislators need educating. They don't know everything. Many people that are in Congress, they're doctors, some are lawyers, they're dentists, they're all manner of regular everyday things. Most of them reading legislation, writing legislation, knowing what all the thousands of bills in Congress do, that generally is not what they do. When there is something that is important to us, it is our job to go and tell them that something is important to us and why it's important. Now, being effective, carefully plan, we do that. Carefully research, we do that part as well. So we're going to do 2 out of 3, and then the careful execution, that's your part, where you're going to bring the letter and maybe get it signed by your friends. So advocacy is an art and a science. So in other words, what are you trying to do? You want to turn a no into maybe into yes, and yes into can I help build support? So no matter what they say, there is a path to move that legislator forward. Why do we want to move the legislators forward? Well, we're coming to visit them 1 day a month or visit their office. The legislators, if they take something up and they believe in a cause, legislators are around other legislators. They see them in the halls. They see them when they're standing, waiting to uh, give a floor speech, and they have an opportunity to talk with each other. And we don't have that opportunity. So we want to be very effective and build our case. Now, who can engage? Everybody. So organizations can engage, even nonprofits that are 501c3. The IRS says as long as we are spending less than 20% of our budget, we can engage. All right, now I want to bring Noel up to talk about the getting ourselves ready to go and meet with a legislator.
Absolutely. We know that when we meet with legislators, what they're listening for is why does this matter to my constituent? Not only your position on the bill, in this case, we want them to support and pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, but the why behind it matters. Your voice, your values, your story are your area of expertise. You do not have to be a legislative expert. You do not have to have a master's in public policy. But what you do need to know is the basics on the bill, as Andrea said, which we'll provide to you. We're going to provide all of this information. You can go through it slowly. If you have more questions, you can always ask us. But here's where you want to delve deep into why this matters for you. Does this bill impact you directly? Maybe you're one of the people who has had trouble making it to the polls because early voting has been cut back. Maybe you're one of the people who went and found that your state has passed a raft of strict voter ID requirements, and you and members of your family don't necessarily have the time or the documents that you need to easily prove who you are so you can vote. And look, for hundreds of years, nobody had to present ID to vote, for goodness sake. And so these kinds of personal stories are the kinds that help your member of Congress remember why they need to fight for this in the first place. So maybe it's something that helps you directly or hurts you directly. Maybe it's because you believe that in this nation of ours, that a fundamental value that we share is that every person is equal and has the same right to make their voice heard and cast their ballot. That's what our nation is about, that so many people struggled for so long, gave their lives for this right, and we cannot let it slip through our fingers. Maybe it's because you are motivated as a person of faith and you believe that we can't turn aside when we see terrible things happening that are preventing our neighbors from acting on their being able to vote. Maybe it's something that is deep inside you and you want to share about that. And when you're sharing something, if it's a particular tradition or faith that's yours, think about what is the broader implication. This is your motivation. Is there a larger value into which that fits, especially if the member of Congress doesn't necessarily share your faith or your tradition? What is something that is broad and that you can say, this is important to me because of X, and that means together we need to build a kind of world where Y can happen. So the other thing is, some of you are on the front lines and have really seen, maybe you're a poll monitor, right? Maybe you've seen lines that are really, really long. All of those kinds of firsthand testimony doesn't have had to happen to you, but maybe you're seeing it happen to others. Have you witnessed the impact of what has happened without this bill or with the diminishment of this bill, thanks to the court? That's the kind of story you want to draw on. Maybe you have a family story that you want to bring forward. We had, when we were making a visit on the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act in the prior Congress, there was a member from the Worker Circle who had grown up in Germany. And one of the things that she grew up post-World War II in Germany. And one of the things that she was able to do is say, look, when we were growing up, we thought a lot in Germany about what happened. How was it possible for Hitler to come to power, for Nazism to spread? And she said, but the question for us wasn't, what would you have done if you were living under the Nazis? Which is one set of questions. She said, the question isn't that. The question is, what will we do to prevent that from ever happening again? And let me tell you, when she made that claim and posed that question and told that story, the seriousness with which the member of Congress listened, it was very clear that she had struck a chord. So you have your stories, you have your values, you have your experience, and as you're preparing for the meeting, go deep into that. Think about that. And know that when you get into that meeting, which won't be a super long meeting, you'll want to think about, how do I encapsulate what I want to have to say so that it has maximum impact and you can story tell with each other and sort of get it down. But know that when you share those stories, it grounds it very deeply in the experience of their constituents. And those stories are memorable. Legislators share them with others when they're trying to bring more people onto a bill. They also will say, my constituents have demanded this of me, and I'm responding to them. So keep those things in mind as we now go into a section when we're talking about the concretes of that meeting and the different roles that you'll play.
Oh, Noelle, I absolutely love that. Love that. Love that. This is great. Now, do you want to do this? I can do this. We can do this together.
Let's do it together. I
All
mean,
righty.
one of the great things about meeting with your elected member of Congress is that it doesn't have to take, you don't have to spend 2 hours with them. They're not going to have 2 hours, right? What they're probably going to have is somewhere between 15 to 25 minutes, about 20 minutes for a meeting. So you want to make the best possible use of your time. And that means clearly introducing yourself and not having, you're not going on and on and on. You all know what I mean. Quick, brisk introductions. You say your name, where you live, and everybody goes around. And then you immediately get into why we are here. Now, something that Andrea knows, and those of you who've made visits before know, our members of Congress love to talk. They will chew up time telling you everything about what they've done and what they believe and that. Make sure that you are driving this meeting and feel free to say, excuse me, let's get back to the bill. Let me turn it over to you, Andrea.
All right, I'm loving that. So yes, the really important, yes, Senator, that's really important, but the reason we are here is, and then you just bring it right back. Now, for some of these bills, we may already have gathered hundreds or thousands of petition signatures. There may be those that you're going to be presenting. And then Noel just went through the whole values, where now there's going to be story time and it's going to be very quick, 2 or 3 minutes. And then there's going to be the ask. Now, for years when I was lobbying, I would frequently be the only person. So I would do all these roles and I could do it in about 35 seconds. When we had groups, then we would be more like the 10, 15 minutes. So there's the story, the ask. Now, this is important. When you ask the member of Congress, will you co-sponsor the bill? You're going to make your ask and then you're going to be quiet and you're going to let the sound of a pin drop fill that room and you are going to wait for the answer. And then whatever they say, then we'll go through some of your responses. When you're done, you've asked, they've answered. If you're talking to a staffer, the staffer is generally not going to be able to answer for the member, although if they've done something similar, they might. And then you're going to say, thank you. So again, it's very, very quick. Now, going to meet an elected member of Congress is not the same as organizing a protest. So you really only need 3 to 5 people. You don't need the masses. So who's your educator? Who's the person that feels comfortable about the bill? Are they going to ask you many questions? Probably not. And they're not going to ask you deep questions where you need a law degree. You want to include at least one constituent so that there's going to be a voter. Since we are seeing US senators, if you live in the state, you're a voter, you're a constituent. Now, setting up the meeting, you can either make an official request in writing, and every senator on their website has set up a meeting. And then when you make your request, a lot of times they tell you it may be 24 hours. Do a follow-up call. We requested a meeting with our senator. You are going to be meeting in the district office. Now, most district offices are having in-person meetings, although depending on where you are, if COVID is really coming back, they may want to meet on Zoom. Zoom is fine. So again, a broad base of support. You're bringing your letters. If you are a member of a church and you have other members of your church, if you are a member of clergy, if you are a member of military, those things carry extra weight just because you showed up. So again, 3 to 5 people is ideal. If you can have a diverse constituency in terms of age, race, gender, that's really, really great. Be respectable, be respectful. be respectable, look presentable. I once had a fellow show up for a lobby day on Capitol Hill wearing shorts, sandals, and a t-shirt. Ouch. Be early. And if you're working on, I think I'm going to be nervous, practice role play until you just feel very, very comfortable about what you're going to say. Now, we already talked a little bit about team roles. If you've got a group, one person should be the facilitator. They're going to run the meeting. Another one or two people should be constituents who are talking about how this legislation impacts them. Then you need that asker closer. Senator, will you co-sponsor the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act? You need the educator, someone who can present the facts and the info, and then the person who thinks they probably don't want to speak, but they'd like to come. They can be the secretary, collect cards, write it down, and then work with the team to plan the follow-up. Now, there are a number of free apps that you can get. Congress, if you have an Android phone, otherwise Trackville and Bill Track 50, where when you are, now this is really for DC, when you're going to visit a member, they will give the room and the building. They will also on those apps take you to the website where you can look up their local offices, which will normally be under Contact Us. And that's where you're going to find your local offices. We've already done this one. I got that one in there twice. And now meeting dues, what you want to do. You want to be engaging with the staffer. There are a number of points on the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. You're going to make a point, you're going to pause, see if there's a question or if there's a need for clarification. Ask the staffer if they have any questions. This bill does not have any complex or controversial points. And if the staffer or the member asks you a question and you don't know, don't make things up. Tell them you will find out the correct information. All right, now the asker. Now, when you're making an ask, it is straight to the point. You're going to ask the question and then you're going to stop. Senator, would you be a co-sponsor on the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act? That's a yes or no question. If they say yes, Senator, that is so great. The bill hasn't yet been introduced. Who else should we be talking to? Now, historically, all the Democrats have gotten on this bill, including Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema. So all the Democrats and the independents, Bernie and Angus King, have been on the bill. So that means if your senator is a Republican, then it's all right. Is there a Democrat that we're going to need to get, or is there a Republican where they have a relationship with? If they say yes, and then you're saying, well, all right, now your other senator is Senator whomever. And what would you know is opposition? Again, these people know each other. They see each other every day. They work together. Many of them have professional relationships. I kind of got to be mom on the Hill. You speak to Republicans. Is there a Republican that'll get on my bill? That's not what we're talking about today. Well, is there? Anyway, it gets interesting. If they say no, then what will it take for you to support this bill? No isn't our life is over, we're going to go home and we've totally failed. No is the beginning of another conversation. What will it take? What is holding you back? Well, there's no other Republican on the bill. Well, are there any circumstances where you have been the first person to take that first step? It's the beginning of a different conversation. We've already talked about the letter. The letter is what you are going to leave behind. Now, there is always a leave behind because in many instances, your meeting will not be with the member itself, it will be with a staffer. So rather than just purely relying on the staffer's notes, in addition to the staffer's notes, here you have a letter that makes a very specific ask. And at the end, and we would like a written response, please, of why they are willing to support or opposing this bill. This is the beginning of this relationship.
Andrea,
And then,
jump in for 1 second. I
yes,
know I don't want to take up too much time, but I do know what you're saying about the relationship can't be emphasized enough. Sometimes you make a visit and you're only going to get so far with them, but what you come away with is more information. You come away with where their hesitancies are. You may or may not have been able to address it in the meeting, but that's okay because the relationship is not a one and done. They're going to see you again. You're going to be communicating with them. You're going to keep trying to address if they have objections. You're going to be a resource for them, somebody that they can point to when they're trying to bring another senator on the bill, if the other senator is hesitant. So the relationship part of this and the fact that you'll be seeing them over and over, we hope you'll do these visits more than just once a month. Like you'll not just do it once, but you'll do it in other months too on related bills where you can come back and have that relationship grow, whether it's with the member of Congress or whether it's with their staff person. And please do not feel terrible if you end up with a staff person. Staff people play critical roles in ensuring that their senators or at such time when you visit someone in the House, the representative is up to date on bills, knows where others stand. They perform incredible educational and strategic roles within the office. So meeting with them and developing relationships with them is also so important.
and I've got an example of that. Rick is on this call. There was a Republican, this was in the House member, where we visited them literally every month. And every month they were like, no, we're not going to support this. And then finally, one month, we came with a bill. It was opposition of the Trans-Pacific Partnership Bill. So, this is going back a while. And they actually made the comment, you have been here every month. And finally, we've got something that we can agree on. There was a relationship there. And then they had a question, is so and so opposed to this? Have you gone over there? You are building a relationship, even though they may say no to a number of bills you bring. Now, follow up. The visit is the first part, and now there's the other part of establishing the relationship. You're going to thank the legislator for seeing you, whether it's their staff or the legislator themselves. You're going to send a written note. You're going to build support. If they ask you a question and you didn't know, you will have come to us. We will have provided you that answer. And now you can write back as part of your thank you note. And again, this is about keeping the relationship alive. And it is no accident that the name of our organization is Center for Common Ground. Now, the thank you letter, and normally it's going to be a hard copy. If they meet you via Zoom, you could probably send it by email. You're going to summarize your key talking points. I'm not going to worry about right now, review how your recommendations can help garner support from voters and other legislators. When we do a bill where we have a petition attached to it, then this will be something that we will add as part of, here are some points that can be in your thank you letter. And then turning up the pressure. So again, it's a very small group of people that goes in the legislative office. Now, there will be letters, there will be petitions, there may be calls directly to the senator's office, there may be meetings, there may be on the Hill lobby days. So when there was a bill that was very, very important, as this is, a number of other organizations are going to do in Capitol lobby days. They may sponsor call-in days. There's a lot of work to get enough push to get people to pass a letter. We don't do letters to the editors and op-eds nearly as often as we used to, but we are looking at picking that up again. So we will let you know. Press conferences, I know Workers Circle does press conferences, Center for Common Ground. We normally don't. We're not doing protest picketing, but we do occasionally do litter drops, and we are literature drops, and we are always doing coalition building. Coalitions are what is really going to bring success, where you meet people in other faith institutions, in other organizations, and they go, we want to work with that too. You get them to sign the letter, or maybe the signature on your letter is your signature and a group of other organizations. All those things work.
And if
Now,
you're interested in protests and direct action, Workers Circle has lots of opportunities for those. So that's one of the great things about our organizations partnering with each other.
yeah,
But yes, coalition building is really important. I saw in the chat that lots of people were saying, hey, wait a minute, I'm hearing, are other groups doing this? Are we alone? The answer is no, you are not alone. But what you're doing when you're getting face to face, so whether over Zoom or in person with your senator and with their staff, is the sine qua non of engaging them and making a difference. So we're so glad that you're learning about this. And I want to promise yet again to all of you, you are going to get every single bit of information. You're going to get the letter. We're going to even give you a little petition form where if you want to get extra signatures from your union or, at your congregation or at your PTA meeting or wherever you are for that letter, we're going to give you a little form for that. We're going to give you a several page packet that will take you step by step through some of the points that we've made tonight. Do this first, then do that first, and here's how you decide your roles, and here's how you practice. So you'll be getting all of this following the program itself.
oh, I love that. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So, street advocacy, again, if you're doing protesty things, you can pick a busy street corner where you believe people who believe things similar to you will be, and you can say, Did you know that there's an opportunity to do X in Washington, D.C.? We want our legislators to do this. Would you be willing to sign a petition? And you've got the little thing on their phone or on a tablet, and all they have to do is fill it out. Now, here's the thing about going and advocating at home. In DC, they expect people to show up and advocate. It is a whole nother emotion when the folks back home are showing up in their office. And they're like, wow, even the people back home are aware of this. Good heavens.
They really, it matters tremendously. The home visits drive home to them that their constituents care like nothing else. It's one of the most important things. We know that when we're going, we're not a professional lobbying group. They know you're not representing some, K Street lobby firm. You are who you are, and that is incredibly powerful.
And they know you're not being paid to be there. You are there
Right.
because this is important to me as a person and a voter. Now, I want to thank Noelle for all the work and assistance and fun she added to this. And what I want to bring up now is I want to bring up Noah Barron to talk about democracy circles and how we can add this every month, going to do advocacy at a local office, how we can add that to what groups of people are already doing. And with this, we are going to do 80% of the work, and we just need you to deliver the letter. So let's talk about democracy circles, local organizing. Noah, take it away.
Thank you, Andrea. So good evening, everyone. As Andrea said, my name is Noah Barron, and I'm the social justice organizer at the Worker Circle. So now that we've learned how to meet with our elected officials, let's talk about democracy circles, which is a model for gathering people and taking action together. A democracy circle is a small group of people who join together regularly to fight voter suppression and demand the democracy that we need, a truly multiracial, multicultural democracy that represents all of us. Forming democracy circles is a way to build grassroots power for our democracy right where you live. Each democracy circle is started by a circle convener who picks a meeting time and place and brings people they know together in person or on Zoom to take action and to explore how we counter attacks on our democracy right now. We provide all of the resources and training, and you bring your passion, values, and people. Democracy circles build power by gathering and equipping. Oh, I started having some slide trouble. Sorry, folks. Thank you, Andrea.
I got it.
Yeah,
Let's
thank you.
grab that.
So democracy circles build power by gathering and equipping folks that you already know. This is an adaptable model that can take the form that you need and meet in a way so that makes sense for you. So that could be around a kitchen table, after a protest, on a Zoom, in your church basement, or in a coffee shop. Democracy circles are an entry point for people who want to do something about the loss of our rights and the erosion of our democracy. So there are two main elements of a democracy circle: action and reflection. So you can see here, the slide, this is our action slide, because democracy circles take action in all kinds of ways. Some write postcards or call voters of color with the Center for Common Ground in states with harsh voter suppression laws to help voters cast their ballot. Other people recruit friends and neighbors to become nonpartisan poll monitors, or they join protests and rallies, or they make visits to their elected officials like we learned here tonight. We provide a take action guide with a wide variety of action circles can take. The other piece is reflection. Democracy circles reflect together. We provide discussion resources to help democracy circles reflect and think about the state of our country. These discussion resources are constantly updated and also include questions for your discussions. Some resources are articles about legislation, history, or culture. Others are videos you can watch. Some are poetry you can discuss, and some encourage you to share your own stories. What's really important to know is you don't need any previous experience to start a democracy circle. It's designed to be easy. When you sign up, you and I set up a time to talk, and I'll walk you through everything. We'll think together about what your circle will look like, and I will hear your hopes and your ideas for what your circle can do. Would you go to the next slide, Andrea, if you don't mind? Thank you. Oh, this is the one with the picture of me. If you can go to the one after that, if you don't mind. Democracy circles build power and community, and one of our worker circle members and the democracy circle convener, who I actually believe is on this call, so shout out to Art, he puts it like this: democracy circles allow us to share our ideas and feelings with other activists, be heard and hear others, get and give support, and have agency, not feel as helpless as we might in the face of rising fascism in this country. So if you're interested in learning more about democracy circles, you can go to circle.org/democracy circles, which we'll put in the chat. Or you can email me directly at nbarron@circle.org, which I will also put in the chat. And you also sign up for a virtual presentation, a longer one on democracy circles, with the Center for Common Ground and the Worker Circle on January 18th at 7 p.m. Hope to see you there. Thanks, Andrea.
All right. Wow. Okay. Admittedly, that was a lot of information coming at you really, 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 really fast. All right. John, Josie, are there any questions that we might try to answer in the last few minutes that we have?
I think we were able to kind of get to them all in the chat. Again, I just want to reiterate, this was a lot of information. There are a lot of links and toolkits mentioned. You'll be getting all of this along with a recording and the slides, hopefully by tomorrow evening. And my email as well as Noah's email, so that once you're starting this process, if you get confused or have questions along the way, we will be there to help you out.
If I could jump in for a second, one of the participants had direct messaged me with a question that I think is worth thinking about for a moment. He said, gee, when I made a visit with my senator said to me, what are the problems with this bill? Or what are the problems that you anticipate? And one of the tricks when you're doing advocacy is that what you want to do is obviously put the positive forward, put what the bill will accomplish forward, and try to anticipate in advance what, if any, counter arguments there might be. We don't necessarily want to start by saying, well, some people are worried about this and some people are worried about that. We really don't recommend that, because that'll just leave more questions in the mind of the elected official. But if you sort of follow the template that we've given you of being able to explain the bill, talk about why it's important to you and to others, stand on your values, and then receive from your senator or their aides any questions. And like Andrea said, if you don't know the answer, don't worry about it. They will respect you tremendously if you say, I will get back to you. I'll be sure to check that out. Let me get back to you. They really respect you when you do that. In fact, that's how we built a relationship with a Republican senator at the Worker Circle. We got back to him on something, and then his staff leader came back to us and used some of our stories in trying to advocate for a particular bill that we wanted to see. So be a little cautious when you hear about problems with the bill. Don't put the accent there. Put the accent on the positive, what it can do. But of course, before you go in, take a look. at where your senator stands. Has your senator supported this in the past? Has the senator opposed it in the past? Are there things that you know about the senator that make you think this guy might have an objection here? Or here's something that's really important for her. I hear her talk about this all the time. So I want to make a connection between that thing and this bill. So just a little piece there.
And one of the things we made a point of doing when we wrote this letter is we wanted to remind the senators that we're calling the bill the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. But in reality, it's simply the reauthorization of the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which basically enjoyed bipartisan support under Democratic and Republican presidents. So there is nothing to be afraid of in this bill. This is very basic Americana. This is as American as we get. All right. Again, thank you, Noah. Thank you, Noel. And thank all of you so very much for joining. I cannot wait to, well, we've got one hand up. Ruth, is it a quick question? And is it in the chat?
I'm seeing it in the chat here.
Okay, great.
Ruth
Yeah,
is
I'm sorry. It is quick. And it wasn't answered yet. And that is what do we do if our person is already progressive? Is it worthwhile going in and bolstering them, or should we
Yes.
be turning our attention to something else?
We always, and that is a brilliant question, Ruth. One of the things I always stressed when I was on the Hill is it is very important to thank legislators when they are doing something good, to
Okay.
make sure they understand that we see the good they are doing and we appreciate it. So
Great.
yes, we bring them a letter and we talk, the senator has always supported this. Well, thank you so very, very, very much. We wanted to begin to really establish a relationship with the local office. Yes. I love that question, Ruth. Thank you so very much. And Noel, I'm going to allow you to say good night, and then I'm going to say good night and send these lovely people on their way.
Absolutely. Thank you all. We know that in your lives, you've got a lot of competing priorities. And in the midst of that, you made time to come tonight. And we appreciate that. We celebrate all the work that you've already been doing for voting rights. And we're looking forward, hopefully, to seeing many of you back with us again next month. Be sure to look for the follow-up email that'll be coming out with all the resources. And if you have any questions, always feel free to reach out. Thank you, Andrea, for such a warm and thorough presentation of the bill and of advocacy tonight. And thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening.
Again, good night, everybody. Be safe. Have a marvelous evening. Everybody take care. Thank you.